Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really granular look at a decision that I think sets a powerful precedent for consumer protection in the housing market. Specifically, for when you sign on that dotted line for a brand new unbuilt home.
That's right. We've been poring over the sources on this, and it's all about a recent and frankly pretty shocking regulatory action out of Ontario.
We're talking about home construction delays.
We are, but it goes deeper. We're looking at the refusal by the Home Construction Regulatory Authority, the HCRA, to renew a major builder's license.
So this isn't just a fine or a slap on the wrist.
No. This is the regulatory hammer coming down.
Right.
It effectively ends a builder's ability to even operate in the province.
And the central tension here, the thing we really have to navigate today, sits right at the heart of pretty much every pre-construction agreement you might sign.
The unavoidable delay clause.
Exactly. That clause that's usually seen as the builder's safety net for when, the unexpected happens.
And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly where that safety net ends and where financial misconduct begins.
Right.
How far can a builder lean on these emergency clauses, especially, after something huge like the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah.
Before the regulator just says, no, this is a mask for your own financial failure.
So we need to unpack this ruling, which was upheld by the License Appeal Tribunal, and figure out what it means for how projects get financed and delayed from now on. Okay, so to start, let's quickly establish who we're talking about here. Who exactly is the HCRA?
Right. So the HCRA, the Home Construction Regulatory Authority, is a really crucial regulatory body.
Okay.
Their job is, it's comprehensive. They license and regulate every single person and company that builds and sells new homes in Ontario.
So they're the gatekeepers.
They are, but their mandate is not just, administration or shuffling papers. It's consumer protection at its core.
Yeah.
They're tasked with enforcing high professional standards, ensuring competence, conduct, and fundamentally giving you confidence in what is, for most people, the biggest financial commitment of their entire life.
They're trying to bring some consistency to the sector.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go right to that core principle then. This idea of unavoidable delay. Conceptually, it makes perfect sense, right?
It does.
If supply lines stop globally or, a natural disaster hits a construction site, you wouldn't want builders to immediately face ruin.
No, and consumers don't want a project just stuck in limbo forever without some way to manage it. The intention is sound.
Right.
The provision is designed specifically to help builders manage timelines when they're hit by truly extraordinary and unforeseeable events, things that are completely outside their direct control.
It's a mechanism for a reasonable adjustment.
It is, for when genuine crises strike, so projects can eventually get back on track without crippling penalties.
But the HCRA, in its response to this specific case, made it really clear that while this clause exists, it's masked. It's bounded by the builder's underlying professional responsibility.
Absolutely. The sources give us this framework-setting quote from Wendy Moore. She's the HCRA's CEO and registrar.
Yeah, what did she say?
She emphasizes that these protections exist to ensure fairness for home buyers. And critically, she says they do not exist, and I'm quoting here, to excuse builder misconduct.
That is a fascinating legal tightrope to walk. If a global crisis pushes my business to the brink, where do I step over the line from being a victim of circumstance to being guilty of misconduct?
This case is the answer to that question. It serves as this crystal clear warning that the unavoidable delay provision, it can't be used indefinitely.
Right.
And most importantly, it can't be used as a shield when the primary cause of the delay is the builder's own failure in its fundamental financial accountability.
So it's about the root cause.
It is. That failure to stay solvent, that's the initial red flag that turned this from just a delay dispute into a really serious regulatory issue.
So let's get into the specifics of who crossed that line. We're talking about the Landing Development Group.
That's them.
And this was a 137-unit condominium project planned in Barrie. The sequence of events here is so key to understanding why the regulator acted this way.
It really is.
So walk us through it. What was the financial breakdown that tipped the HCRA from, maybe issuing warnings to refusing their license renewal outright?
It was a cascading failure, really, but the HCRA tracked the cause right back to internal finances, not the external effects of the pandemic.
Okay.
The investigation found 4 critical steps that turned this delay into a regulatory offense. First, the builder defaulted on its construction loans.
Okay, defaulting on a loan is a commercial failure for sure. Yeah. But in a volatile market, isn't that just a risk of doing business? Why does that automatically become a misconduct issue big enough to lose your license?
That's the critical point the HCRA addressed. A loan default is a commercial failure, yes, but that default prompted the next step. The creditors then withdrew all the project financing.
Yeah.
So that left this huge condo project completely unfinanced, immediately stalled. At this stage, the builder knew for a fact that the project could not proceed because of internal financial insolvency.
So the project stalled because the money dried up, not because of, say, a temporary site closure mandated by the government during the pandemic.
Precisely. But here's where the misconduct comes in. Despite knowing the project was dead in the water because of their defaulted loan, a private internal financial issue, the builder then improperly invoked the unavoidable delay provision.
And what was their justification?
They cited the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wait, so they were using the global health crisis as cover for their lost bank financing. I mean, how does the HCRA prove that was deliberate misconduct and not just, I don't know, a desperate attempt to stay afloat?
The misconduct lies in what they did with that invocation. They used the unavoidable delay citation to justify indefinite project delays. Okay? And most critically, they used it to withhold and retain purchaser deposits.
Oof.
See, when a project is legitimately canceled, those deposits have to be returned. By invoking this clause, they bought themselves time and they kept the buyer's money, even though they knew the project's failure was sealed by their own loan default.
That distinction is paramount. It shifts the whole discussion from, operational difficulty to bad faith management of consumer funds.
It absolutely does. And this is why Wendy Moir's assessment was so sharp.
The CEO.
Yes. She stated that the builder, quote, abused this provision, improperly relying on unavoidable delay to mask its financial instability and stall the inevitable cancellation of the condominium project.
So the HCRA wasn't fighting the delays themselves. They were fighting a calculated cover-up.
A cover-up designed to prevent the return of deposits, using the pandemic as a very convenient scapegoat.
So if a regulator sees a builder using an external crisis, even one as serious as the pandemic, to explain away what is really just poor internal financial health, the consequence is the revocation process.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the legal weight of the decision, which was upheld by the License Appeal Tribunal, or the LAT. The LAT introduced a really critical legal distinction here, the direct connection requirement.
This is the legal foundation that shuts down the loophole. The tribunal emphasized that any legitimate period of unavoidable delay must have a direct connection to the extraordinary event.
They drew a very firm line in the sand.
A very firm line, distinguishing between direct impacts and just sort of indirect market effects.
Okay, let's nail that down for the listener. What is a direct connection in the context of the pandemic, and what's just an indirect effect that the LAT dismissed?
A direct connection would be immediate demonstrable impacts. So a government mandate to shut down all non-essential construction sites for 3 weeks.
Right, something you could point to.
Exactly. Or a specific port closing that physically stops a key shipment of materials. Those things directly impede the physical act of building.
And the indirect connection.
The indirect connection is what happened here, which the LAT rule did not justify the long delays or keeping the deposits. The sources explicitly say that general cost increases after the pandemic were considered only indirectly related to COVID-19.
Okay, think about that for a second. Massive inflation hits lumber or labor costs, making the project's original budget unprofitable.
Right.
And then the builder defaults on the loan because the project just isn't viable anymore at that original price. But wait, a lot of builders would argue that a 300% increase in the cost of steel caused by a global supply chain shock during a pandemic is absolutely a result of that extraordinary event. Why did the LAT say that wasn't enough?
This is where the HCRA's judgment on financial responsibility comes into play. The tribunal is essentially saying that while the pandemic caused the inflation, the cause of the delay was the builder's financial model failing to absorb that risk or secure the necessary refinancing. If a builder's business model is so fragile that it can't withstand market volatility, even volatility kicked off by a global event, that fragility is deemed an internal financial responsibility failure. It's not an unavoidable delay.
That is a subtle but incredibly powerful legal distinction. The regulators are saying that managing cost escalation, even massive, unprecedented cost escalation, is part of the builder's inherent financial responsibility.
And the failure to do so can't be masked by invoking the global crisis clause.
Exactly. The initial cause of the project failure here was the defaulted loan, not a physical inability to pour concrete because of a lockdown.
And this repeated and improper reliance on the provision, that's what ultimately supported the HCRA's view that the builder was fundamentally not financially responsible in how it conducted its business.
Which is a foundational requirement to even have a license.
The most foundational requirement.
And if you're deemed financially irresponsible, keeping your license is seen as contrary to the public interest.
The HCRA's job is to protect those deposits, and this case shows they will connect the dots between poor business decisions and the misuse of contractual clauses to do that.
So what was the final outcome?
The outcome is definitive. The Landing Development Group is no longer licensed to build or sell new homes in Ontario, and the purchasers, thankfully, have had their deposits returned.
That's the most important part.
It is. This whole case just underscores that the regulator is extremely serious about directly linking a builder's operational financial health to its eligibility to hold a license.
So this brings us to the actionable knowledge for you, the listener.
Yeah.
You might not be a builder, but if you're a consumer in the market for a new home, this story has huge implications for your due diligence.
Huge.
It confirms that the HCRA is protecting buyer deposits from financial failure, disguised as a pandemic-related delay.
Right. And the HCRA has this dual role here.
Yeah.
They do the licensing, but they also provide educational resources. They want to give new home buyers confidence, but that confidence requires some action on your part.
You have to use the tools they provide.
You do. You have to use the tools that prove the builder is legitimate and financially sound.
So what is the most critical tool that a buyer should consult before signing any purchase agreement, especially now when financial stability is under such intense scrutiny?
It's the Ontario Builder Directory. Simple as that. This is the authoritative source of background information on all 7,000 builders and sellers in the province.
The official list.
The official list. Before you commit tens of thousands of dollars, the HCRA urges you to confirm the builder's license status on this directory. You can check their history, see if they have prior complaints, and make sure they're in good standing.
It's like a public report card for licensed companies.
That's a great way to put it. And if a builder isn't listed, walk away. Period.
Okay, but what if a buyer is already signed and they start noticing these warning signs like excessive, unjustified delays that seem to follow the pattern we've been talking about?
That is the time to leverage the system. If you have concerns about a builder's conduct, whether it's delays that don't seem legitimate or questionable financial practices,
Especially anything about them holding on to deposits improperly.
exactly, you must file a complaint through the HCRA's complaints process. This regulatory body exists to investigate and handle these exact kinds of issues, and this case proves they have the teeth to act decisively.
So pulling all this together, the refusal decision against the Landing Development Group really clarifies the boundaries of regulatory tolerance in this post-crisis environment.
The overarching takeaway is crystal clear. The unavoidable delay protection is designed for true black swan events, but it will not excuse financial mismanagement.
Right.
If a builder tries to use external crises as an indefinite justification for stalled projects, regulators will dig deeper to see if the real failure lies in their own operational and financial competence.
So this HCRA decision basically establishes that financial instability can't be hidden by just invoking external global crises.
That's the bottom line.
An essential piece of context for navigating one of the most complex financial commitments you can possibly make. Thank you for walking us through this really rigorous legal and financial distinction.
My pleasure. And as you mull this over, here's a final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay.
Since the License Appeal Tribunal has now explicitly ruled that general increased costs, even those caused by the pandemic, are only an indirect effect and therefore don't excuse a builder's financial default.
Right.
What level of preparation and financial contingency should buyers now reasonably expect to see built into every single builder's business model before that builder even secures project financing? The bar for proactive risk management in new construction has clearly been raised significantly.
Food for thought indeed. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.